Hi everyone. So yesterday we took a look at what was going wrong with Assassin's Creed Unity based on the reports that were flooding the web at the time. Now these reports were across the spectrum really, from PlayStation 4 to Xbox One to PC. And they all had a very common theme going on. Performance is subpar to what we were expecting, and in fact what we were promised, which was 30 frames a second. What we're seeing in very heavy AI areas is a drop in frame rate that is considerable. On PlayStation it's anything up to 10 frames a second, dropping down to 20. On Xbox we're losing 3 to 4 frames a second on average. Now it's not a uniform problem across every scene in the game, which means we can start to see where the bottleneck is here. It does seem that artificial intelligence, which is very much a CPU bound aspect, is the bottleneck. As soon as there's a large number of NPCs, non-player characters, on screen being governed by AI, that's where the game starts to have a significant number of problems. In other scenes, which tend to be geometry based or where lighting is quite heavy, that's where we're seeing smaller dips, not as big or as wide a problem as we seem to be getting with, well, the AI aspects. So what led to this? Well, I think it's very easy to turn around and just say, well, Ubisoft people are incompetent. And I think that's probably a lazy attribute to ascribe to them. What I think we're actually dealing with here is some aspirations and a line in the sand for performance. Those things, if you kind of take when this game would have been started to be developed, when they first wrote those design documents and said, okay, we're going to go for an average of 5,000 AI routines. If you kind of consider when they would have been looking to produce this design document, maybe around 2 years ago, maybe a little bit earlier, they would have had to decide what features the game was going to have. One of those features may very well have been a substantial increase in AI, because at that time the performance level we were expecting from the next gen consoles was going to be around here. Here's our metaphorical line in the sand that developers were working to. They had design spec documents from Sony and from Microsoft, but ultimately until you actually get the silicon in your hands and start developing on it, that's only the point where you can actually see, oh, I think we may have over-egged our expectations here for what these consoles were capable of. The problem then is you're already kind of locked into a marketing cycle. You've already started talking to reviewers. You've already started talking to the general public about what this game is going to be about. That started really nearly a year ago, I think, for Assassin's Creed. Long before, in many respects, they'll have been able to work out exactly how much performance they were going to get out of their code, especially those AI routines. For my mind, it would seem to me that the guys at Ubisoft put the line in the sand and then found the physical hardware just couldn't come up to those expectations. Now, we should obviously question why they got it so wrong. Why were their expectations so out of whack with reality? But also why they then didn't start paring back when they realised there was going to be some problems. Well, in part, that's the marketing for you. Once you've kind of locked into saying you're going to have 5,000 AI and 10,000 in some scene, you're kind of going to have to do it. In part, they may very well have found that they ran out of time to do any more optimization work on that AI, or even potentially completely change tack and have some kind of fallback position when the CPU became bottlenecked, that the AI could become simplified in some way, or could share particular AI branches between large groups of AI on screen, thus reducing the kind of, well, impact on the CPU and the bottleneck we're seeing there. Now it's interesting as to why effectively two very similar consoles architecturally are both encountering a problem, but the PlayStation 4 is having a bigger problem. How come? The only thing we can really say is in the case of the Xbox One, they have ESRAM, some ultra fast memory, but with very small amount of it. Now that might be just enough to hold these AI calculations away from the CPU for a little time, so it can carry on processing and then drop them back in with no bottleneck, or with a reduced level of bottleneck. It could also be that the guys at Ubisoft are taking advantage of cloud opportunities from Microsoft's Xbox One console. We saw with Titanfall, you can offload AI calculations to the cloud and have those returned in chunks without a major impact in performance of the game. That may very well be going on here with Ubisoft and the Xbox One, but I think that's unlikely because we probably have heard Microsoft crowing about that a little bit, or Ubisoft saying, hey, we've managed to do more calculations on Xbox One than we were able to do on PS4 because we've offloaded some to the cloud. We may very well never know exactly what went wrong for Ubisoft on this one, but it does seem that developers internally, at least anecdotally, were telling friends to avoid this game because technically it wasn't working very well. Now, it's going to be interesting. That's something we heard very similar coming out of developers working on Watch Dogs. They just weren't all that impressed with what they'd created and were telling friends, yeah, skip this one, it's not a very good release. Can Ubisoft fix the mess that they've kind of got themselves into with Assassin's Creed? I don't think so. I think this is the game. Even patches, unless they have a radical overhaul of the way AI is computed, it's going to be like this forever. What we have here is a game that is not fit for purpose and actually under trading standards within the United Kingdom and the EU. If you bought this game or pre-ordered it, you'd be well within your rights to ask for a refund. Unfortunately, it is not of merchantable quality. Thanks for watching. Do please subscribe to us on YouTube and Twitch, and please like and comment on these videos as well. We love to chat.